Carly with My Academic Family, and today I want to talk about a topic that I think gets talked about quite a lot in popular culture and media, but I think frequently doesn't get dug into quite the way or to the depths that it should. So, what I'm talking about today is the idea of self care, and this term is used quite a lot in TV shows, in films, in news articles. And there's another topic that I want to bring up in combination with this that I think it's important to talk about together is self-soothing. And the reason I'm bringing this up is I think a lot of times what gets talked about as self-care is frequently self-soothing. And both of these concepts are really important to integrate into our regular lives, and both have a really valuable and important part to play in our own health and well-being. But knowing kind of what need you have and what is going to best help you achieve your goals and your health and well-being is really valuable. So I'll first go through different ideas or different parts of what is self-soothing, so that way we can see how that's different from self-care. So self-soothing is really emotionally focused. If you think about when you're really stressed out, or if you're having a panic attack, or you're feeling a lot of anxiety, being able to self-soothe is a really valuable tool. And it's something you even see or hear about babies doing. Babies learn to self-soothe, and we as adults ought to be able to self-soothe as well. So self-soothing is inherently kind of a reactive skill or behavior. So it occurs when we're feeling emotionally, frazzled or bad, if you like. And so because of that, you can't really soothe ahead of time so much. You have to soothe something that's itchy or uncomfortable, or not the way that it normally is, maybe not normal. And so self-soothing has more of a short-term focus. So the goal is to get yourself kind of back to a more even keel, back to your usual mental and emotional state. So in the context of, say, a panic attack, because that's something that I have familiarity and experience with, getting yourself back to that kind of pre-panic attack mental state. So that's a short-term focus and action that this self-soothing is going to focus on. And because of this fact, and the fact that it's reactive, the fact that it's got this short-term focus, is that it's temporary. It's treating a symptom, it's not treating a root cause. Taking some time to help myself come down from a panic attack isn't going to make panic attacks go away. Taking some time to reduce stress by having a nap or having a short walk isn't necessarily going to make the source of that stress go away, but it does help in that moment with that specific emotional state or that triggered moment that I'm experiencing. So that's kind of what the concept of self-soothing is. And as I mentioned, it's so valuable to be able to self-soothe and to have plans for self-soothing ready to go for when you need them. If you know that exam time is a really stressful time of your academic year, then having plans ready to go on how you can self-soothe when you're hitting that kind of emotional stress wall. If it's getting yourself a piece of chocolate, or for me, usually having a cup of hot cocoa, or giving yourself permission to binge watch a season of your favorite show, those are self-soothing activities that can be really valuable. But they're not long-term solutions in and of themselves. And that's where I think self-care comes in. So first of all, self-care is holistic. So whereas with self-soothing, we were looking at a primarily emotional concept or emotionally focused situation, self-care is covering everything. It's your physical health, your mental health, your emotional health, your spiritual health. It's everything. And it is a proactive thing. So you can work on self-care ahead of feeling in a stressed situation. It can help alleviate, getting into stressed situations. It can be just really valuable to set up a lifestyle that includes regular and ongoing self-care. So because of its proactive and holistic nature, it is by design, or by its nature, a long-term activity or a long-term focus. So this is something that's meant to be sustainable for you to be able to work on, not really continuously, but regularly. And through that, it is just an ongoing thing that we all ought to practice. So typical examples of this kind of self-care can include making sure you take time to clean your physical space, whether you have just a room in student accommodation or you've got a room in a flat that you share with friends. Keeping your physical space as clean and as tidy as you can is an act of self-care. It helps to reduce stress and anxiety and improve mental health. It can be getting exercise, getting your body physically moving, whatever that looks like for you. If it's doing walking photography, if it's running, if it's swimming, if it's playing, badminton, or bike riding with friends, whatever that kind of physical activity for you looks like, making that a regular part of your life is inherently self-care, and that goes into fulfilling needs for social activity, if it's something you do with friends, for the physical well-being of your body, for your mental well-being, and other things of that nature. It can also include making time for just having fun, because you can't be work all the time. I read a recent article that was talking about why we get mentally exhausted. That was really interesting, and there had been previous research done saying that our brains aren't getting tired through the burning of calories the same way our bodies get tired through the burning of calories. So there must have been some other reason that our brains were getting triggered into this kind of fatigue state that we might feel is similar to physical or bodily fatigue. And so this article that I read said that it was happening due to the release of a chemical into our brains that was signaling to us that we needed to stop and take a break. And so it was doing this through this feeling of fatigue, even though that wasn't, it's not the same as bodily fatigue. So what that tells us is our bodies aren't designed for go, 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 work all the time. And we need mental and emotional downtime just as much as we need physical downtime. So part of self-care is also building in time for downtime regularly. And I think that differs from self-soothing, because you can pre-plan this downtime, you can pre-plan this fun time, whether it's doing a hobby or hanging out with friends. That's something you can pre-plan. And so that makes it part of self-care versus self-soothing, which is, in the moment, I've had an emotional situation that I need to now take some reactive steps towards managing that emotional state. So that's kind of how I perceive those differences. And there's a lot of things that are part of self-care that aren't necessarily thought of as fun. you might see in popular media talking about shopping being self-care, but really I think that's more self-soothing than it is self-care. It's not really sustainable in the long term, depending on what your budget looks like. It's something that's frequently reactive. It's mostly on an emotional level rather than dealing with a holistic approach to your own care. And, so just thinking about things that are fun are not always going to be things that are self-care. Cleaning my space is not something that I think of as fun, but it is really valuable. And I don't always think of physical activity as something that's fun, but again, really valuable. So sometimes self-care is those hard things. It might be going to spend time with a friend or reaching out to talk to a friend, even if that feels hard in the moment or it feels, like something that's maybe not what you want to do. I was reading just recently about the character Eeyore from Winnie the Pooh and how he might spend days in his little house, and Winnie the Pooh and Piglet would come along to check in on him, and he would say that he was not in a good space and that he didn't think he was very much fun to be around, and so he didn't reach out to people because he didn't think that they would want to be around him. But when Winnie the Pooh and Piglet decided to sit down and spend time with him, even though they weren't necessarily requiring him to be jovial and engage in conversation, that just being around them helped him. And so that was a difficult thing for him to do. He could have told them to go away or to leave him alone, but he didn't. He took that more difficult but self-care choice to have some social interaction. So think about that when you are trying to decide things that you might do for yourself for self-care. And you can sit down and have a think about what might be self-care. What are things that would be really helpful for you in a proactive, sustainable, ongoing way that addresses all different aspects of your well-being. As I've mentioned, your physical, your emotional, your mental, even your spiritual well-being. And you can make a plan. Try not to make it too rigorous. You don't want to stress yourself out with self-care, but sometimes you do have to be a little firm with yourself and say, this is something that's important. This is for my self-care, for the good care and well-being of me as a person, and do that. I like to think also sometimes about self-care in terms of if I was caring for my dog, I would make sure that my dog got good food to eat, that my dog got playtime, that my dog had a comfy bed to sleep in, that he got to go outside and be physically active. And so if these are things that I want my dog to have, and these are part of the good care of my dog, then I can think about those things in context of myself as well, and that I deserve those things. So I feel like this video has maybe got a little bit rambly, but I hope you've got a good idea now of the difference between self-care and self-soothing, and can have a think about making some plans for what those things might look like, what situations might be appropriate for each of them, and how they can be really beneficial in your life. So if this has been useful to you, we've got other resources on our channel here on YouTube, or you can always go to the website. It's www.myacademicfamily.org.uk to look for more resources that are helpful for university students to help you be more successful. So take care, and hopefully I'll see you again soon. Bye.